Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good day. Today, today I want to talk about age and experience, and that from that you can learn something, sure, but it doesn't make or give you wisdom. True wisdom comes from God and His Word. I don't care what you know. You can know how to build a house, take it down. You can know how to sell property, manage stuff. You can know how to properly build a car. It doesn't make you wise. It doesn't. It doesn't. So we're going to jump into a story in the Bible. Of course, we're going to go to good old J-O-B, good old Job. He is one of the best examples. And we're going to go to Job chapter 32, verses 7 through 9. So let me open along with you. Job chapter 32, verse 7 through 9. So 32, 7 through 9. And we're just going to write, I'm actually going to start from actually verse 1 in chapter 32. I think it carries in well, at least better, into what I'm going to get at. So these three men ceased to answer Job, because he was righteous in his own eyes. Then the wrath of Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite of the family of Ram, was kindled against Job. His wrath was kindled because he justified himself rather than God. You see where Job was falling short? Because Job, no one would answer him. None of the wise men would answer him. Why? Because Job, in his own eyes, was righteous. In his own mind, his own eyes was righteous. More righteous than them. And so the other people won't answer him. How can you talk to somebody that already perceives better than you? As in, they already have the answer before you, while you're talking to them, or they're not going to listen to you because they're more righteous than you. They're just going to wait till you're done and then give you their input. So the family of Ram was kindled against Job. So back to verse 3. Also, his wrath was kindled against his three friends, because they had found no answer, and yet had contemned Job. Now Elihu had waited to speak to Job, because they were older than he. When Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, his wrath was kindled. Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite, answered, I am young, and you are very old. Therefore I held back. I didn't dare show you my opinion. I said, days should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. But there is a spirit in man, and the Spirit of the Almighty gives them understanding. It is not the great who are wise, nor the aged who understand justice. Therefore I said, listen to me, I also will show my opinion. Behold, I waited for your words, and I listened for your reasoning, while you searched out what to say. And when he goes about, he gave him, boom. Did you hear that though? He said, they should, he said, I said, they should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. But there is a spirit in man, and the Spirit of the Almighty gives them understanding. It is not the great who are wise, nor the aged who understand justice. This young man understood that. He even said he was young. He said in verse 6, he said, I am young, and you are very old. So, we all think that, though. We all fall into that life of, we think that age should show the wisdom. No, age shows experience in things, yes, but it doesn't give you wisdom. We must seek God's wisdom. We must seek His wisdom. There's another verse I actually want to go to. Psalms 119, verse 100. We'll go there. Psalms 119, verse 100. You love that? I love hearing that bird. I love being out here. Alright. That's what I get for being a Celtic. So, verse 100 in Psalms 119. I understand more than the aged, because I have kept your precepts. I have kept my feet from every evil way, that I might observe your word. I have not turned away from your ordinances, for you have taught me. How sweet are your promises to my taste, more than honey to my mouth. Through your precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way. And now I know I have anger, and I run into that last verse, 104, a lot. But I'm working on it, and I ask God for forgiveness, and I continue. Because that verse, I definitely have an anger problem. I know that. And so when someone does something that is pretty much a false way, I lose my mind for sure. Now let's go back a couple verses. This is when he says, I have kept my feet from every evil way, that I might observe your word. I have not turned away from your ordinances, for you have taught me. How sweet are your promises to my taste, more than honey to my mouth. Which I like about that verse is that almost reminds me, because this is going to go now to Proverbs, following his ordinances, is what we need to remember. Following his ordinances, observing his word. That takes us to Proverbs 16, verse 31. says, gray hair is a crown of glory. It is attained by a life of righteousness. So now, I do have my notes here, always. What and how? Okay? It is a if question, because the honor of gray hair is not merely a result of aging, but is linked to a life of righteousness. Righteousness involves living in accordance with God's laws and commands. So then, obviously, we go back to verse 19. How do you obtain your righteous self in your gray hair? Because there can be foolish gray hair, and there can be wise gray hair. Just because you got gray hair doesn't mean you are righteous and living with God's commands. Doesn't mean that you, it doesn't mean that you're following His word. That's why we have to stay in His word, And that leads us on to Ecclesiastes, which I probably just said that wrong. I had a friend of mine on here. He's a follower of me on YouTube. And I'm thankful for people, all my subscribers. If there's anything I say, I make mistakes. I'm human. I write notes down and I try to relay them to everybody the same way I had it put in my brain. But sometimes it don't come out the same way that it went in my ear. So I try to write things down. So I probably just said that wrong. Sorry, friend. But thank you for telling me how it was supposed to be said, and then I'm probably saying it wrong again. But Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 13. Better is a poor and a wise youth than an old and foolish king who doesn't know how to receive admonition no more. Refuses to get corrected because he's a foolish king. He just loves his ways. This is how he was taught. This is what he'll never change. And that's foolish. That is foolish. So that's what I mean, dude. The Pierce age doesn't mean wisdom. We're all going to be learning until the end. We're all going to be changing until the end. I will not probably be the same 10 years from now because I'm constantly learning and reading and understanding and going through the Bible. And I pray that in those 10 years, I pray my difference is positive, like that nice sounding motorcycle, and I influence people around me, positively, not negatively, and I don't want people to learn from my wisdom. I'm just throwing teachings out that I find in the Bible. And I mean throwing out as in giving out, not throwing it away. YouTubers be like, oh, he's just throwing it out. No, I'm trying to help not only myself, I'm trying to help others. So remember that. And you can read on chapter 3 in Job. I would go on further, but this is already going on a 15-minute video, so I don't want to keep going. But yes, read chapter 32 in Job, okay? And then read 33 because Elihu goes on. Let's continue speaking. But I said, they should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. But there is a spirit in man, and the Spirit of the Almighty gives them understanding. It is not the great who are wise, nor the aged who understand justice. Therefore I said, listen to me, I also will show my opinion. So there we go. I just want to speak about that. I hope you got something out of it, and like that quick little age doesn't mean wisdom. Deuces.